All right, welcome to the stage, Martin Hanzl with law firm EY Law Austria with first months of MiCAR. What have we learned and what now?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very excited to do a quick talk today about MiCAR EU crypto regulation. So basically what you have to think about if you want to do either a token issuance in the future in the EU and or provide services as a crypto asset service provider. My name is Martin. I'm a partner at EY Law and a lawyer. Have been involved in the crypto space since 2016. And if you want to connect with me, you can do that via Telegram or LinkedIn. You can also wait until the talk is over to see if it's worth it, because we'll also have the QR codes on the last slide. In today's talk, I would like to talk with you about three topics. On the one hand, basically the principles of MiCAR, so what is actually in scope of MiCAR. Then the first 2 months of MiCAR have passed, or full applicability have passed, so what have we learned? And then thirdly also, what is going to come with MiCAR and what is basically kind of to look out for in the next few months and years. Just a quick refresher, in Europe we have the markets in crypto assets regulation, which basically is built upon two pillars. We have regulation for issuers and offerers of tokens, and we have regulation for crypto asset service providers, so basically any centralized exchange or centralized service provider that wants to offer services in relation to crypto assets, be it custody, exchange, a trading platform or whatever. Equally important as to what is in scope of MiCAR is actually what is not in scope of MiCAR, right? And you see here quite a few buzzwords from DeFi, decentralized finance, to security tokens, mere tech providers and NFTs. The tricky thing here is just because you call something decentralized, it doesn't really mean that from a regulatory point of view, it is also like really, this application is really decentralized and therefore not within the scope of MiCAR, because MiCAR actually requires you to be fully decentralized, and no one really knows yet what that means. But basically, what we can figure out is that if you have like one centralized entity that actually calls the shots, you will very likely not be decentralized, even though if you are on your road to decentralization or if you claim to be decentralized. Same for security tokens, or basically any financial instrument that would also not be in the scope of MiCAR, but actually in the scope of other EU supervisory laws, which is, for example, MiFID II, that would be necessary here. Maybe also quickly looking at the different types of tokens that we have under MiCAR. We have asset reference tokens and e-money tokens. E-money tokens pretty straightforward, basically a USDT or a USDC. Asset reference tokens have a stable value to one underlying or a bundle or a basket of underlyings. Could be, for example, a precious metal or a basket of currencies. And then we have other crypto assets, which is definitely going to be the biggest part of crypto assets that we see in the market. Those are layer 2 coins, but also layer 1 coins, until also like including utility tokens. What actual requirements do we have for each set of tokens? Asset reference tokens and e-money tokens, issue of those tokens actually have to get a license and have to get pre-approval of the regulator before being able to offer this. And they require an EU-based issuer offerer. For other crypto assets, which is going to be like if you as a token project intend on launching a token, or if you basically want to do a token sale, those tokens don't necessarily require an EU entity to do that, though what we see right now in the market is that most of the token issuers will actually establish some kind of EU presence for this offering. And if you intend on handing out or giving out on other crypto assets, you will also be required to publish a white paper, which essentially includes some kind of disclosure information. So the talk is actually what have we learned and what have we seen with MiCAR. So basically what we discussed right now, and basically the scope of MiCAR was just a refresher. So what have we learned? So far we've seen that MiCAR as such, the industry is very, very well accepted by the industry. There's, especially for crypto asset service providers, a run for licenses, because actually if you have a license under MiCAR, you will be able to market your services within the whole European Union and the whole European economic area, so over 450 million people. But of course, there's not only positive things about MiCAR, there are still a lot of questions that are unclear, especially when we look at token projects or layer 2 projects. We'll come to that later, but like just thinking about bridges or portals, this is still very unclear kind of how that looks like from a regulatory perspective. Just a quick run through what has happened over the last year, so to say. We've seen that almost all of the top exchanges in terms of like focusing on crypto asset service providers for this slide, all of the top exchanges have announced that they will get a MiCAR license somewhere in the EU. Are actively preparing, so we don't expect anyone to actually abandon the EU market, because that has also been on the table, at least for some players. What are the learnings, or what are the industry questions that we have seen in terms of crypto asset service providers? So basically, the good thing is that we see that we can offer, or crypto asset service providers will be able to offer all of their, or almost all of their existing products and services under the scope of MiCAR and or under the scope of MiFID, right? So everything that we are used to seeing on centralized exchanges like spot trading or crypto spot margin trading, or also earn services in terms of like if you lock your assets and get an interest, all of that will be possible also under MiCAR. Another thing that we've seen is basically that the corporate governance structures are quite hard to build up, especially if you enter the EU market for the first time. Drafting all of those policies and then actually implementing those policies is not that easy, and has been quite difficult for a lot of the players. So basically it's important to start early on. What are then industry questions that we get often from crypto asset service providers that actually relate to layer 2 projects as well, or token projects as such, is and this is like probably the question that we get asked the most. How do we treat non-compliant tokens, like for example USDT, or also other crypto assets that do not offer a white paper? Do we have to delist those tokens or not? And here, of course, I'm a lawyer. The question is not super clear. So there are, of course, like gray areas and there's some possibility to maneuver. But what we see in practice is that most of the listing policies of the large crypto exchanges actually will require tokens to have a white paper, and will require tokens to be appropriately licensed as soon as those exchanges get MiCAR licenses. So that is also why we see that there's quite a run for white papers of from layer 2 projects to actually eliminate or reduce the risk of getting delisted with crypto exchanges. And a couple of other questions that we've seen in the industry is basically, what do we do with EMTs? The question of kind of, can we still do transfer services? And of course, do we have to delist USDT or not in the EU? Some people of you might have already seen it. Most of the exchanges actually opted to delist USDT, which again shows that there is quite a cautious approach of crypto asset service providers. So what are we seeing in the market for layer 2 projects and token sales as such? Here we see that for other crypto assets, MiCAR has been applicable, or is applicable, since the 30th of December 2024, so quite recent. And we've seen that no one really knows, kind of, especially if you issued your token before the 30th of 2020, the 30th of December of 2024, how MiCAR will affect you, and if you kind of have the risk of getting delisted immediately from crypto assets, from crypto exchanges. Again, what we see, just the risk of getting delisted, and because CASPs have quite hard listing strategies here, is enough for most of the layer 2 projects to draw up white papers. And we expect that this will actually increase over the next couple of months even more, so that at some point, mid or end of this year, most of the tokens, especially of the larger projects, will have MiCAR compliant white papers. And we would also expect that that then becomes industry standard for crypto asset service providers to actually require a white paper also for those tokens issued before the 30th of December 2024. What else do we see in terms of layer 2 projects and token sales with MiCAR? I would say 3 topics that we see that are heavily discussed right now. Of course, token sales. We've all seen over the last years that there haven't been too many token sales in the last year, but more like free airdrops, because there was simply no clear framework under which you were allowed to sell tokens to the public. This changes now with MiCAR, because we have a clear framework under which you can actually sell tokens to retail clients as well, and that's why we already see an uptick in envisaged token sales, and that people are actually preparing to sell tokens to retail clients. What we also see is that even the US is thinking about, or kind of the SEC is apparently open to discussing this as well. So that's going to be very interesting, kind of how many token sales we will be seeing in 2025. And 2 other topics to touch upon is basically looking at layer 2 projects, layer 2 infrastructure, seeing kind of, is that something that is within the scope of MiCAR? And here we have been discussing, or we're still discussing, quite a few things intensively, especially everything around bridges, for example, whether the operation of a bridge could actually result in custody services or something the like, or transfer services, or if you have a lock and mint bridge, for example, if that actually means that you're issuing tokens and all of that. So those are questions that we are discussing right now, also with the regulator, because I feel the common sense is clear. No one wants that to be a regulated activity, but we're trying to figure out how to structure it to not be a regulated activity in compliance with MiCAR. So that's basically 2 of the discussions that we are looking at right now. And I see I've only 15 seconds left, so please also feel free to connect with me on Telegram or LinkedIn. Of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me later.
Thank you, Martin.